Welcome to the Go Zero webinar. Today's topic will be answering your customers' toughest heat pump questions. As previously mentioned, the webinar is being recorded. If we can go over to the next slide, we'll go over some rules and housekeeping. Go back a slide. Okay. So for just some rules or protocols for today's webinar, as previously mentioned, the session is being recorded. The recording will be shared with you at the end of the webinar, along with the slides and any other materials shared during the webinar. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to drop your questions into the chat at any time, and we'll also have a dedicated Q&A section. So if you want to hold off on your questions and ask them at that time, feel free to do so. If you experience any technical issues, please message Taylor in the chat. You could also try leaving and rejoining. That also addresses some issues sometimes. So that's also a helpful little note. So for the webinar, the Go Zero installer trainings are brought to you by South Coast AQMD, as well as the Energy Coalition in collaboration with Electrify My Home. The Go Zero trainings offer industry-aligned training, flexible training formats, since we have webinar formats available as well as in person, and it also offers workforce development. If we go on to the next slide. As part of the Go Zero program, there are also rebate incentives available for heat pumps. So heat pump installation, if you are single family and you're in a non-overburdened area, you have up to $1,500 to replace a furnace, $1,000 to replace a water heater. If you are in an overburdened area, you have $3,000 to replace a furnace and $2,000 to replace your water heater. Multifamily funds are also available, and we have small business funds available for $4,000 per water heater. So this is part of the state of California's committed transition to carbon neutrality by 2045, with a state goal of 6 million heat pump installations by 2030. With growing heat pump adoption, customers are asked for knowledgeable installers, which is why these trainings are beneficial to you as a viewer. Workforce readiness is a bottleneck for trained contractors. So trained contractors can speak to product specifications, give recommendations, and give clients peace of mind that someone trained in electrification is here to support, guide them. Historic statewide rebates and incentive programs are currently underway and are accelerating demand. So training your team is your advantage. A trained installer will make you the go-to expert for electrification ready solutions and support. So if we can go on to the next slide. So today's trainer will be Larry Waters from Electrify My Home, and I'll go ahead and I'll hand it off to Larry.
Hey, good morning, everybody. It's nice to not see you here. I can't see who's in the audience, but welcome. Thank you for joining. We're going to go over some pretty cool stuff today, so let's get right on with it. If you weren't on the last call, a little bit about, who's this dude? Been around the HVAC trade for a really, really long time. I don't know. Anybody out there might not have been around since 1982. I've been actually working on air conditioning and all those associated things since 1982. That's a really long time ago, folks. That's if you're dressing up and going to an 80s party, this was at the end of the 70s. Okay, so when I started, we were using duct tape for duct work. So now we got to go in and fix all that stuff, right? My first drill had a cord. There's a date there. I'm a NATE certified technician, and I've kept my NATE certification for 24 years in heat pumps and heat pump installations. I did have a whole bunch of other ones, but I don't need them anymore because I only do heat pumps, right? And then I'm a BPI certified Building Performance Institute certified building analyst, which just means I'm a goofy building science nerd. In 2015, I started installing only heat pumps. This was way before the California's push for electrification. It was just because heat pumps are better than furnaces. They just are. We can make houses so much better with them. And then because I had that knowledge of installing heat pumps for 5 years, and I saw what was coming in the industry, I founded this company, Electrify My Home, in 2020. Actually started with my first payroll in July of 2021, and it was me, another installer, and his wife was my office manager. So the really started very small, and since then, in 4.5 years, we've grown to 23 employees, and we got guys everywhere doing everything. So um, it's proof that electrification as an only business, we're not an HVAC service company. We only service what we sell, and we strictly do project work. The benefit for that I want to share with you. Oops, I got to get rid of that real quick. The benefit of that I want to share with you is um, we're always booked out. This is not a seasonal business, right? So my guys have not missed a day of work that they didn't ask for since I started this company. So always got a 90-day backlog. We're booked into January and on into February, and somehow we got to figure out how we're going to install 15 more jobs that we have to schedule still. So it can be done. This type of business can work well. And if you've already got an HVAC company or a plumbing company, you can just bolt this right onto your business. Take this business model and just kind of bolt it on. So that's a little bit about us, right? I always share my mission statement on all of these because I think it's important. I share it with every customer as well, so they know I'm dedicated, right? We provide the most efficient, cost-effective electrical, most efficient, cost-effective solutions. Practice responsible electrical management and train and influence others to do the same. That's our whole business mission. We have another one here at the company that has some numbers in it, but today, this is going to be a two-parter. Today, we're going to talk about getting your company to buy in. It's really important that if you're going to be the lone wolf at your company, which kind of how I started when I first got into electrification and building envelope and building science, I was the only guy at my company doing it, right? Me and the owner went to BPI classes. He was bought into a point, but none of the installers were bought in. They all had to learn it, right? So it had to be something that, because of my interest in it and wanting to get moving on it, I had to be the catalyst for it to grow through the company. And that company is still around, installing a lot of heat pumps. They do a lot of gas stuff too, which is um, but you know, not everybody is as crazy as we are. So we're going to talk about understanding the technology a little bit. The who is understanding your customer, and then how is how to address questions before they arise. So really today is the toughest heat pump questions for the customer is we have to get the conversation going with the customer. We have to understand how they are and who they are, and have to understand who we are in order to do it. So without further ado, let's get on with this thing. So here's the why. So understanding the purpose. What the heck is the purpose of electrification? We went over this a little bit in our last webinar. Um, we really need to electrify 6 million homes, or we need to install 6 million heat pumps by 2030. There's a lot of things pushing this forward, but the biggest thing pushing us forward right now is the need to reduce carbon emissions in California by 40% below 1990 levels, which is going to be a bit of a hurdle, right? We need to electrify a lot of stuff and reduce a lot of carbon emissions. So the purpose is um, we have to reduce carbon emissions. Our houses are as big a carbon polluters as our cars are. In the Bay Area, they found out it's almost an even split. If I electrify a bunch of houses, I get to live in a really cool house with great stuff, and be a big part of reduction. Or I could go get an electric car. I could do about the same, but then I still have all the appliances in the house. When you buy a car, the value goes down. When you improve your house, the value goes up. So it makes sense to do your house and get that going. So that being said, first things first, your belief system and how you believe and how you program your mind is going to dictate how well you can do this. And you're going to have to do the paradigm shift. You're going to have to understand that heat pumps are better. And we need to look at them in a way that we can wrap our head around that and say, you know, we've been heating houses with furnaces for 150 years and it's been burning gas and putting pollution into the environment. And we now have a way, because technology has crossed the line, we have a way to work better using electricity and save money. So it's a really exciting time for all this to be happening. Because if they were pushing electrification to this degree 15 years ago, it would be a whole different outcome. So we're very fortunate that we have the technology. So what I say is if you're going to be into electrification, you're going to sell it, you got to put some of these products in your own house. Because if you believe in them, your customers are going to believe in them too. Your customers can read you. If you're not bought in, how are your customers going to buy in? If you don't believe in heat pumps, how will your employees believe in them? So we need to look at that. Customers are going to be able to sense your confidence or your hesitation. Uh, if you come in as an authority in this and you've got one in your own house, I would highly suggest at least putting a water heater in your house. And there's a program through one of the utilities down in Southern California where you get a water heater just by going to the water heater class. Put it in your own house. Understand, hey, I still have hot showers. It works good and it's super high tech. Okay, so get one in your own place. Trust is contagious. When you trust in your product and what you're offering in, they're going to sense that and they're going to trust it as well. If you believe in these products, it makes selling natural and not forced. Story behind this. When I first started doing this way back in 2015, there was nobody else was talking about transitioning your house from gas to electric. It was just like, why the heck would I want to do that? There's still a lot of people that say that to me. But why the heck would I want to do that? So it was not an easy sell. I'm going to go into somebody that's called because, hey, my furnace is broke. I'm getting quotes on new furnaces. Can you come out and give me a quote on a new furnace? A lot of you guys are going to stop there and go, this customer asked for a new furnace. I'm going to sell them a new furnace. We have to go beyond that. We have to get the conversation going. Like, hey, have you heard about the transition that California is making in the gas system? Like, open up the conversation. Let them know what's going on. Get excited about it, right? If you believe in your solutions, it's going to be so easy. This builds credibility, loyalty, and long-term relationships. When you start doing these, you are going to be the guy that does that does the heat pumps right and not just want to put another furnace in. That's how I built this entire business, was being that guy. So there's still time to get in and be that credible expert on electrification, because all your competitors are going to be selling heat pumps. Most of your competitors are going to be doing it wrong. You have the opportunity, especially through this group of classes that we're going to be doing for South Coast over the next period of time. We're going to give you all the ammunition and education and experience that you need, or well, you'll have to gain the experience on your own side, but we're going to give you everything you need to be credible and align your values with a homeowner's investment. If you're going to go into a house and a customer says, I got an old gas furnace and I got an air conditioner and I'm just looking for a new system, and you take that order and you don't talk to them about the transition, you're doing that customer a disservice, because even if they put that stop up and they say, you got to ask permission. Can I at least tell you about what's going on with the degasification or the decarbonization or the electrification movement in California, and show you what a system like that might do for your home? At least try to breeze the conversation, because we now know, like, the furnaces we're installing right now aren't that good, right? They just don't work that good. So if you feel your belief, they'll feel the relief, and that's relief of comfort they've never felt before, amazing indoor air quality, super quiet operation. If we do heat pumps right, they are so much better. Okay. Soapbox. I almost fell off my soapbox right there. Okay. You take our word for it. We design, plan, and execute correctly. The stuff works. We typically install systems in the Bay Area, and it's not that different from where you guys are. It's a little nicer where y'all are. Like you don't have as much cold as we do, but the stuff works. We're doing most of our systems come in somewhere between 700 and 1,000 square feet per ton because we're sizing them using load calculation. So properly sized and installed systems are going to give us some benefits that we're not going to get by just swapping a box out. So you go to that house, it's got the 3-ton air conditioner and the 60,000 BTU furnace, and you just go, hey, I got these guys interested in a heat pump. I'm just going to put in a basic single speed heat pump and go for it. And that's now going to be a 36,000 BTU heating source that's going to drop when it gets cold outside. And you don't do anything to make the house better. That's going to cause problems. We need to size the systems right, and we need to make improvements on the home so that they can work properly. Because if you don't tell your customer, hey, I'm reducing your heating capacity by 50% and just not telling you. So we don't want to do that. We want to plan stuff out. Smart planning avoids oversizing. Oversizing is a way bigger problem with heat pumps than it ever was with traditional HVAC systems. It also is going to mean missed upgrades, which means missed money for you. We're in business to be in business. We're in business to make a profit. So, and also costly mistakes. If you put a plug and play heat pump in, you take out a 3-ton system and you pop a 3-ton and you don't do anything else, God forbid, but you don't even get a permit and you don't do duct work and you don't do all these things to make it right, it's not going to perform well. Your customers are not going to be as happy. And many of you may have experienced this already. So why is it good for your business? Because you know what? Every contractor in the South Coast area is not on this webinar today. You are taking the time to learn this. If you apply it, you can easily become an expert in it. There's going to be other people that are going to come in behind you and go, "Nah, I don't think you should do that. This house, you can't use a heat pump in this house. There's no house you can't use a heat pump in." Okay? You just have to do it right. It's going to give you opportunities for new maintenance and repair services, right? There's new things for you to work on. There's new things for you to have maintenance contracts on. If you're going into a house that's heat only and you're putting a heat pump in, that's a heat and cool unit. You got an opportunity for more maintenance there. Cash flow. If you change out a furnace for $5,000, maybe that's what the going rate on those now. I don't know. I haven't put one in since 2015. uh, Cash flow. You're now going to put in a system that is $15,000 to $20,000 versus one that was $5,000 or $6,000. We need to talk to our customers about that, and we need to be ready for that money, right? Your customers are ready. I guarantee you guys are hearing people calling. I'm really interested in a heat pump. Do you guys do heat pumps? Customers are ready. They weren't ready 10 years ago when I first started doing this. They had to, every single one of them was a in-depth conversation why you should do something different. I didn't get all the sales back then, but I got half of them. And those were people that were intending on buying the $3,000 furnace from my competitor or from me. And they ended up spending $15,000 on a heat pump system in the Bay Area where they're probably never going to use the air conditioner. Although we had some record hot days. They all used it. Anyway, so customers are ready now. They're asking for this. If you can show differentiation and expertise, that's going to result in new customer segments because once you start the electrification process, there's a whole bunch of work to be done in that house to get them fully electrified, right? So my recommendation is if you're an HVAC company, you don't do electrical, hey, get an electrical license or get a relationship going with a good electrician that's going to give you good pricing that you can sell their upgrades. You can sell those car chargers. You can sell those circuit splitters. You can sell the pre-wiring. You can do all of these things that are additional income streams. New marketing pathways. I think it's crazy marketing that um, a furnace safety check. And we'll come out and do a free furnace safety check, or we'll come out and do a tune up, and we're going to get a safety check. And then you find a cracked heat exchanger, and you're like, cha-ching! I found a cracked heat exchanger here. I got a pretty sure sale. That's fantastic. And then I'm going to go put in another machine that is going to be gas and has the same problem. We don't have to do that anymore. It's a great selling point. Like you don't need safety inspections on heat pumps. So new marketing pathways there. Reduced liability with no gas. No flue pipes anymore. No gas connections. A couple less things you have to worry about on inspection. So reduce liability. Customers are really excited about getting that gas furnace out there if you talk to them about the dangers of the gas furnace. If anything that needs a safety inspection is inherently unsafe. First and most important thing, though, is you can be the lone wolf at the company and do like I did and just start selling heat pumps and teach the guys how to do them from what you learned in class a week before, which is literally what I was doing when I first started going through the BPI stuff and operating kind of in that building science thing. I was just reaching out to my mentors and like, hey, how should I do this? And got walked through a few of them, and bam, we were off and running. But I got my team involved. I got my team on board. I went back and I shared the benefits of electrifying houses. And the biggest thing back then was I'm no longer my average sale is no longer $7,000. My average sale is now $20,000. And this is back in 2015 because when you start stacking on new ductwork and insulation and doing a little air sealing and making the house more efficient and then putting in a heat pump system, that was even 20 grand back then. Now it's like 30 something. Uh, but you got to get your team involved and you got to get them on board because if they just come up one day and say, "Oh man, look at what am I installing today? Wow, I've never installed one of these." You need to get people on board, right? So through these classes, if you keep coming back to these classes, there's going to be a boot camp class coming up in December, and that boot camp class can lead to the cohort program, which is a 12-week course where we'll really get you into the details. We'll even come out and visit your shop and help you get your people convinced, but you're going to have to get there and convince them right away. So, why is it good for your customer? All these reasons. You pick one, right? There's so many reasons and so many opportunities to sell the right customer on one of these issues. We're no longer asking those three questions like, do all the rooms heat and cool at the same rate, or does anyone in your family have allergies or asthma, or whatever, however you're asking these questions. We now have a benefit that goes along with a heat pump system that directly aligns with all of these great opportunities. So let's just pick one. Modernization. If you've got a customer that's saying, "Well, I've had a gas furnace forever. I'm good with gas. I'd just rather talk about a gas furnace." And my first response would be, "Come on, dude, pull out your flip phone. Let me see what model flip phone you got." Because realistically, we had no resistance when we went from a flip phone to a smartphone. We had no resistance when we went from a tube TV to a flat screen TV. We had no resistance when we got all those cool features in our cars, like we could push a button and start our car. We couldn't do that 20 years ago, right? So it's a modernization thing. It's the new technology for your home. It's the way homes are moving forward to be modernized. Let's just pick another one. Healthier. How is a house with with a heat pump healthier than a gas house? Couple reasons, right? First of all, I'm taking the opportunity for any bad things to happen for which I need a safety check and potentially put exhaust gases into the house that can make your family sick. We're not going to have that problem at all. I put this in, I'm going to be able to seal up your house. If that furnace is sitting in a closet and it's open to the attic and the crawl space, I'm going to seal all that up. So I'm going to get rid of attic and crawl space air from my house, which is going to make my house healthier. I'm going to put in a system that has variable capacity. So it's going to modulate. So it's going to run really long cycles. I'm going to put a really great filter on with that, and I'm going to clean up the air in the house. I'm not just going to be pushing cold air, which is what a lot of people think, like, oh, this thing runs all the time. Yeah, but it uses hardly any energy, right? It's saving energy by continuously mixing the air in the house, which makes your air healthier. And I'm constantly dragging that air across a really good filter. So every heat pump you install should have a really great filter as a standard piece. Disaster readiness. If I've got a tankless water heater on my house, or I'm thinking about a tankless water heater and somebody told me about a heat pump water heater, like how much water is sitting in that tankless water heater for you to survive on when there's a catastrophe and I can't get water out of the faucet, right? With a heat pump water heater, I got 65 gallons of tank water there. I don't have that with a tankless water heater. I don't have tankless water heater. I don't have hot water when the power goes off either. I got a full tank when the power goes off. Well, depending on where it is in the cycle, I at least have some hot water there. Okay. And then remember your customer starting point. Everybody that you're going to talk to, unless they're on the outskirts of town, outside the gas tree, has had a gas furnace. They've always had a gas water heater, and they've never lived with a heat pump. Most people have never lived with a heat pump. And there's heat pumps on the outskirts of town that have been there forever. And you got a 1975 heat pump in some apartment complex out there, and the thing that really doesn't work very well when it gets cold out, and it's really noisy, and it makes that gushing sound every time it turns on and off in heat mode. They've never lived with that. They don't have to live with all those things. If you put a new heat pump in somebody's house that has an old heat pump already, man, they're going to give you a full mouth kiss. But we're taking out a furnace that is basically the Ferrari of heating, and we're going to put in the Nissan Leaf of heating, or potentially the, say, Tesla of heating if we do a really good inverter system and it's really badass. But they've never lived with a heat pump. We need to let them know what it's going to be like to live with a heat pump, and we need to connect with them on an emotional level on that, and we need to get them going. Okay. So I forgot to turn off my team. Sorry about that, guys. Uh, so Always had a gas furnace. Okay, so what is good electrification? So we have two principles that we work on here that we teach in depth about. And one is good electrification, and the other is, you'll learn it if you come to the 3-day class, is install small. It's all about making stuff work right. So what does it mean? Installing the most efficient solution, utilizing existing infrastructure when possible. That means if the house has a 100 amp panel on it and it's a little house and I can get all I need to on that 100 amp panel, I'm not going to tell them they need to upgrade the panel. If they've got a 100 amp panel and I'm going to end up going over, I might offer them a different solution so that they don't have to, God forbid, have a wire pulled through the street or get a wire down from the pole, and then that we don't have to involve the utility company, because that can really cause the job to stretch out further than we want it to. So using existing infrastructure when possible is really important. We will have another webinar coming up on all that. Uh, Consider all electrification requirements from the start. If you're coming in because they called you about a water heater and they wanted a gas water heater because they don't know about heat pumps yet, and you say, hey man, there is some great electric technology around this. It is way safer than what you have now. And it's really what everybody's moving to, because there's going to be a certain point in time where gas water heaters are no longer going to be available. So heat pump water heaters are a good investment now, because we can put this whole thing in with the infrastructure at 2025 prices. If I give you another gas water heater and it fails after the point where we can't install them anymore, you're going to have to get a heat pump water heater installed with those prices. And then there may not be any incentives, right? So I can do it now with incentives. We can get you all this great money back. Um, but while I'm here, I need to look at your electrical panel, and I need to look at all the other gas loads in the house so we can build a little plan, and we can get our mind around what the true implication of this whole thing is. And then go through, fine. They got a gas furnace, they got a gas water heater, they got a gas dryer, they got a gas fire pit in the backyard. I don't know. They've got the gas stove top, but they've got the electric oven, or they've got a gas range. Whatever it is, we want to make notes of all those so that we can look at how is all this going to interconnect with our system as these people electrify everything. And do I have a good opportunity to upsell them on a great, like, smart electric panel right now, or some pre-wiring or something like that? So considering all the electrification requirements from the start not only makes the next project easier, but it also makes the next sale much easier. So what are the four rationales for this? Is reduce carbon at the source. We talked about that a little bit ago. Houses have a similar output of exhaust that cars do. So if I reduce carbon at the house, I've given you all of these features that we already talked about, and I've gotten rid of this carbon right here that has as much impact as that if you went and bought an electric car and had to worry about plugging it in, or I mean, a lot of people have them already, but or you or you buy an electric car and then it just like every other car you buy, it becomes worth less money as soon as you drive it off the lot. When you do improvements on a house, it increases the value of the house. So why would I not want to electrify my house before I electrify my ride? So, and by all means, if somebody has already electrified their ride and they want gas appliances in their house, I don't know. That's an easy one. They're safer appliances. If I change out my gas stove and I put an electric induction stove in, I don't have any open flames in the house anymore. I got a stove where if I take my pan off the induction pod or the surface of the thing, it's going to shut that off. There's no heat generated between the two. Like they're so safe. If I take out a gas water heater that perhaps if you look at the top of it, it's got the melted gaskets because it's like been leaking exhaust gases into the house for years, and I put in a heat pump water heater, there's no chance of any exhaust leakage there. So these are much safer. They're much healthier, especially that gas stove. That gas stove is just like all that exhaust is going right in your house, right? So they're much healthier. But it's the same with the heat pump for the house. So if you're blowing air over the heat exchangers of a gas furnace and that thing's been in there 30 years, got a crack in it, it may not be emitting carbon monoxide, but there is some nasty stuff coming in the house if that's the case. If you've got a return air leak in the platform and there's a big old hole where the line set went down, probably had a little cork tape on it at one time and that fell in. So now I'm sucking air out of the closet. I'm sucking air from underneath the house and in the attic. That's not healthy. And man, can we ever deliver wow, we can deliver some great comfort with a good heat pump system because I can tell a customer now, listen, your house, all your rooms, if I size this thing right and do the design properly, all your rooms are going to be within a degree and a half of each other. How cool will that be? Like you can walk around in your underwear all the time if that's what you're into. Okay. When you understand the technology and you can explain it properly, your customers can tell you know your stuff. So, one of the things that we do on all of these is whenever we do an assessment, and our company works a little bit different. We do everything virtually. We're not a service company. I don't, you're not going to be able to do everything the same way we are because it's going to be a big flip if you have a regular company. But you can, I did all this at a different company that doesn't operate the way mine does now back then, and we were able to get it all in there with no problem. We just kind of shifted our focus on a couple of things. It was the greatest thing that ever happened to that company. And the greatest thing that ever happened to my company was that it came from that. But okay, so customers can tell when you know your stuff. This is something I show to every customer during our virtual assessment. I explain how the process works. I'm like, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, how much do you know how heat pumps work? And I have a little thing, but what I call it my 101 and 201 class. It's a whole semester. It takes 5 minutes and there's no grades. Okay. So the first question or the first one is heat pumps move heat, gas furnaces create heat. When we create heat, there's always going to be losses. Like no furnace has a whole number in front of the efficiency. There's never a 1.5 efficiency. If we can get 150% efficiency out of gas, man, wouldn't that be awesome? But the most we can get is about 96%, 97. Okay, so there's always going to be a decimal point there. That means for every 1 unit of gas, I've got less than a unit of heat I'm delivering. With heat pumps, because we're going to move heat from one place to another, I'm able to amplify the heat and get it into the house. So I amplify it through the mechanical compression that happens in this device here. This is called the compressor. And so what's happening in here is there's refrigerant gas in here. And any kind of refrigerating device you have, whether it's the air conditioner in your car or your refrigerator or that wine cooler where you're keeping your red wine at exactly 57 degrees, it does the same thing. It's got refrigerant in there. There's a whole bunch of different types of refrigerants for different temperatures and different systems, but they all have a few things in common. And what they have in common is when they're under a lot of pressure, they hold a lot of heat and they're in a gaseous state. So when that compressor pushes on that refrigerant, it adds that pressure and temperature to it. And that pressure and temperature is then delivered into a set of coils because I've taken out the heat exchanger. No more gas in this one, Mrs. Jones. The cooler air from your house blows over this coil. It absorbs the heat out of that refrigerant. And the second common denominator of all refrigerants is that as it starts to release its heat, it starts to condense. And as it condenses, it becomes a liquid that is now devoid of some of its heat. That heat all went into your house. So then it goes through an expansion device. Now, this liquid refrigerant that's still under a high pressure and high temperature is going to go through an expansion device. And all the expansion device is a teeny tiny little hole. And it's going to push through that hole. And what that does is it drops the pressure of that refrigerant really fast so it gets really cold. So that really cold refrigerant that's now existing below freezing temperature is going to come outside. It's going to go through the coils outside. And hopefully, if it's warm enough outside, this little fan is going to pull enough heat. We're going to pull enough heat out of the outside air to keep this whole process moving. The problem with this technology has always been when the temperature outside gets too low, we can't get this number as high as it needs to be. So this one doesn't get as high as it needs to be, and neither does this one. So it loses traction. But Mrs. Jones, we don't sell heat pumps like this. We sell heat pumps that don't just turn on and off. They have a built-in volume control. So that means my compressor, when it gets colder outside than a normal heat pump, is going to lose its effective capacity. Mine is just going to speed up and compensate for that. So I can pull heat out of really, really cold air with my system. So that means it's going to give you 100% of the comfort you need, even on the coldest nights of the year. How does that sound? And by the way, did I mention I'm doing this at 4 times amplification? In other words, 1 unit of energy is going to give me as much as 4 units of heat with this machine. Remember a minute ago when I told you your furnace could never give you more than 1 unit of heat for 1 unit of energy? This machine can give you 4 units of heat for 1 unit of energy. That's how this is so much more efficient. If you explain that to customers in a way like that, that's exactly the way I explain it. But when you do that, it emphasizes quite a few things there. The efficiency of the system, how it's going to work. In the wintertime, if you get the wrong one, it's not going to work well. Why you want to buy mine. The fact that I know all this and can explain it to you, that's going to make you an expert. So learn this and communicate it. Know your products. If you don't sell just one brand, and I know it's going to be hard, especially if you're not the owner of the company, but inverter heat pump systems work differently. And when you understand how they work, let's just take a brand X and brand Z. And brand X is, they're both really well regarded heat pump systems, inverter heat pump systems. Brand X has the ability to slow down further and speed up further. It changes my ability to size it in certain houses. Brand Z works really good at design capacity and can go down about 50% below design capacity. Brand X can go all the way down to 20% and it can overclock by almost 20%. So in a house that's loose or they're going to be doing more things over time or they haven't got the windows yet, I'm going to put brand X system in there because I got more top end capacity. And then once they do all these improvements on the shell of the house, it's going to be better at adjusting itself to the new normal of the house. So we have to know how our products work and understand them and be able to explain them. Some of these systems are fully modulating, fully communicating. The thermostat, if it's looking for a 5-degree differential, it's going to speed up and take care of that right away. Other ones that are inverter systems are going to use a regular thermostat and they don't know that you changed it, right? They're going to use temperature inside the air handler, inside the coils of the refrigerant to slow the system down. Problem with those systems is if you put them on a high static duct system, they're never going to go into high speed. So know your systems that you're installing and how they work and don't misrepresent them. Okay. So explaining different heat pump options. You're going to go into a discovery phase with your customer and you're going to figure out what they need. You're going to communicate them with them and you're going to figure out what they need. But what we've seen more often than not is my customer has an estimate for something like this. They already have an estimate from whatever particular brand, and they're going to get 5 of these heads put in their house. And hey, that might be a good solution if you don't understand how they work. The problem is most people don't understand how these work right. So we're not going to go a ton into that. We'll go into that more on the techie on one of the techie webinars. But this is not the best solution for every customer. This is a great solution if they've got a flat roof and a concrete floor and you've got a place to put these on the walls, and you can put them on outside walls, even better because I can naturally drain the water and I don't have the condensate pump I need to install. But when we install heat pumps, inverter heat pump systems, we only install these type of systems in houses that have to have them. And we get customers all the time that are like in a regular house and they're going to put a 5 zone ducted heat, or excuse me, ductless heat pump system in. They have to get an outdoor unit that's way bigger than they actually need because they're sharing capacity on these systems because the manufacturers don't build capacity correctly. Like most of the rooms that we're trying to condition don't need 6,000 BTUs. They need like 2,000 BTUs. So we end up having to oversize these systems, and then there's all kinds of issues that can pop up. So a lot of customers think it's better to have one system per room. And if a customer's asking you about that, well, I was told that I could just turn on the master bedroom. Well, you can, but it's always going to be full blast, and the extra capacity of that system is going to bleed off into one of the other ones. We can't slow that unit down as far enough to just run one of these if I've got 5 in there. So we need to be able to know how to communicate that. Okay. Uh, we have electrical capacity, but does it meet code? So most houses are never going to go over 100 amps. There's a study that was done. I have that slide in here, but there's a study that was done a couple years ago, and they looked at 22,000 houses. They found out 98% of those houses, they did not know what size panel was in the house. 98% of those houses never went over 88 amps, and 86% of those houses never went over 50 amps. There's plenty of capacity usually if we're going to use a low energy system. You know, every house is going to be different. So we have to understand how to do a calculation and understand it. And most cities are going to ask for a bottom up load calculation. That's one where you're going to have to go look at all of the loads that have dedicated circuits like dishwashers, built-in microwave ovens, stoves, washing machines, things like that, or dedicated circuits. And you're gonna have to add all that in. You're gonna take the square footage. You're gonna add in for the kitchen circuits, and you got to figure out like how much can I put in here before I'm over 100 amps? Because even though that house is never going to pull 100 amps, we have to protect the wiring in the house. So and we have to protect that bus bar under the freakish consideration that everything might be turned on full blast at one point, but it's still not going to ever go up to that level. Okay. Um, Watt dieting. Watt dieting is something we talk to customers about when they're close on their panel. We're going to talk to them about using more efficient appliances. Like, hey, if you're going to put in if you've got a standard plug-in dryer that's rated 5,280 watts, how about we how about we take that out and put a 120-volt heat pump dryer in at 2,200 watts? I've now just saved wattage that I can use for something else. How about we buy the dishwasher that doesn't have the secondary heater and it's only 1,100 watts versus 1,400 watts, or it doesn't have quite as aggressive of a dry cycle? Or how about the guy out there that's going to put in a heat pump with a 220 air handler, which kind of gotten away from that now, thank goodness. And then, he's not sure of himself, so he's going to put strip heaters in. Um, and then it's going to be 9,220 watts. Or maybe I put a good inverter system that's umbilical fed, so I only feeding the outdoor with the electrical, and the outdoor is providing power for the indoor. Those things are like 3,500 watts, right? So big difference there. Heat pump water heaters. I got 4,500 watt, 30 amp units, or I can even go with a 120 plug in here to even save more. But you can see by doing a little bit of watt dieting and watching our P's and Q's and recommending things to the customer that are potentially a little different, we can save a ton of power off of that electrical panel, and we can make a whole bunch of stuff fit in. So there's a whole bunch of 120-volt solutions out there. So we got 120-volt heat pump water heaters. I've had the heat pump water heater in my house for a little over 4 years. It's always been a 120 volt. I had a 120 volt this brand before, and I have a 120 volt different brand in there now, just because I'm testing them out. And you know what? My showers are always warm, but like the delivery of hot water is fine. I have a big enough tank that serves my house fine, even when my son comes home from college and takes his legendary half-hour showers. I still have enough hot water. We don't run into problems because it was sized right. And it's a 120 plug-in, so I didn't have to run a 30 amp circuit to it. You got a customer just needs some they run their house off of a generator when the power fails, or they have backup battery system. They have medical issues where they have to be at a certain temperature all the time. So if the power fails in the middle of summer, they could get really sick. We got 120 volt um, ductless systems. Like these are great. I have a few of these deployed out there for people, mostly with health problems, that when they run their house on generator, they want to be able to keep one room comfortable because the husband has MS. So, or a 120 volt plug-in. Hey, this has all, it says better features than typical induction ranges. This is an electric induction range, cooks with magnets, has precise temperature control. It's amazing to cook on. I love its simplicity, and it has a battery built into it. So whenever it's cooking, it's using the battery, and then when you're done cooking, it charges itself back up again. You're supposed to be able to cook 2 Thanksgiving meals on this thing on one battery charge. So I've never tried it. It's never been an issue. It always just charges up and works. The beautiful thing about this, power goes out, I can still cook, right? Because that's another objection. Here's the flat top version of that, battery backup flat top version. So if I've got the separate oven and cooktop, which often throws us for a loop when we're doing the electrical load calculations. This is a solution we recommend to our customers a lot. I don't install these. I install lots of these. Washing and drying in one machine. We now have a 120 volt machine that evaporates the water out of the clothing after you put it in. You put the dirty clothes in, you come back a couple hours later, you have clean, dry clothes. And when I say dry, they're not hot dry like you'd get out of an electric dryer or a gas dryer, but they're plenty dry. They're not super hot, but which is good for your clothes because they're not super hot. So when we're asking the toughest heat pump questions, the toughest heat pump questions are, you know, what's going to happen with my energy? Why would I want a heat pump in the first place? How can I do it on my existing electrical panel? You know, what does this mean in the big picture for my house moving forward? All of these are going to be solutions to answer those questions when the customers are asking, why do I need this? Well, it's the future. There's going to be an eventual point in time where you potentially won't be able to get a gas system. The gas systems, especially for HVAC now, they're really terrible. And I can put this great technology into your home and help you use less energy. And if you have the benefit of solar on your roof, I could particularly get you to, zero op cost, which is really the background of all of this. So, okay. So knowing your customer, if you can't, the most important way to answer the tough questions about heat pumps is to hit them all in your presentation. And we've gone over a couple things now because people have friends that have heat pumps. I talked to a customer that said, I have one friend that hates their heat pump. I have another person that loves their heat pump. You installed the heat pump for the person that loves it. That's why I'm talking to you. Right. And I'm like, well, not everybody gets the straight story because not everybody educates themselves or understands how the stuff works. They just pop a new system in there so they can sell Monday, install Wednesday, get paid on Friday. It's all good. We don't do that here. We put in systems that people are going to live with for years and they're going to be super comfortable and they're going to use a lot less energy. So if we're answering those tough heat pump questions as we go and we're talking to the customer and answering these or asking these questions, along the way so that we can answer those objections, because that objection sheet, I said, that's all of them that I've ever heard. Uh, we can help get you there. But in order to do this effectively, we're going to have to know who our customers are. So we need to do a little recon. First, we need to do a little recon on ourselves. And I am going to let this stay up here for a second. If you guys have never done a disc profile test, now this is a really quick little personality test. I'm not asking you to take it now, but scan this, take it when we're done. When you get to page 6 and you push or submit my information, you're just going to scroll up to the bottom of the page and you're going to see a little clamshelly looking thing like this. And this is going to tell you what your personality is based on the questions that you just answered. And it's going to give you a lot of information about how other personalities work. So let me go back a minute. Everybody exists in 4 personality types when it comes to these. Okay. We have dominant or drive type personalities. These are take charge, get things done, make decision, take action quickly people. We have I type personalities. They engage others, share enthusiasm, inspires and persuades others. People like to get out and talk and help educate people, are often influencers. We have clarity. Clarity can also be analyzer or cautious or conscientious. Those are different tests are going to have those different. But this is the analyzer person in your world, the guy that loves the spreadsheets, right? Um, doesn't believe in Bigfoot because there's no spreadsheet on it. The influencers, we believe in Bigfoot. Come on. Okay. So work steadily within systems on order, accuracy, and precision. And then we have the support personality who are literally the glue that holds society together. If you're a support personality, I applaud you because you make the world a better place. Actually, everybody makes the world a better place, but the support personality is the one that holds it all together. Okay, so here's a little bit of more information on that. So, and we've aligned it with if anybody's ever watched Star Wars, this is going to be completely um, normal to you. Okay, so dominant, decisive, strong-willed, results-oriented, impatient, and demanding. We got Darth Vader all over that one, right? And that's not a bad thing. There's some good Darth Vaders out there. Influential. We got Han Solo over here, man, always talking himself out of a problem, getting out of there, only using the laser gun when he's got to get out. I forgot what they called that gun. Charismatic, persuasive, inspirational, a little impulsive, and overly optimistic. That's a problem with and I'm so saying that's a trait of high I personalities is a little impulsive. You might be an I if you ever, bought something that you went, did I really need that? Then we have the steady, patient, reliable, calm, can be passive and indecisive though. So you gotta talk through this. Might be a little harder to read a steady personality, but you'll figure it out pretty quick. But you won't know that they might have a passive reaction to something and then it might become passive aggressive actually. And then we have the conscientious personality types, which has got that analytical bent. These are the engineers of the world out there. You can tell they got a 15-year-old car and they're going to brag to you about how many miles gone on it, how good a gas mileage it's got. It's going to look perfect still, right? They're very cautious, very logical. You can go into logical explanations with them. But they are going to be a little bit critical and they're going to read right through your BS. Conscientious personalities are not good for BS salespeople. BS salespeople work pretty good with the influentials. And if you can win a steady patient person over or a steady personality type over, um, but if your sales process is too long or too entailed, or you try to get into too many details, D personalities are going to be like, dude, I don't have time for this, right? So they're going to buy at different rates. Dominant and influential are going to buy much faster. And we can go and we can sell them in a way that we know they're going to make a decision more quickly. The steady and conscientious personalities, they're going to take a little bit more time to decide. Conscientious mostly because they're doing a lot of research in the background. Steady because they're over talking to their friends about it. They're getting the feeling, they're polling, polling, all their friends to see what's going on. If you can get a steady personality, if you can get a group of S personalities as your company ambassadors in the neighborhoods, you will have referrals forever. And they don't even want anything for it. I mean, I have to force referral benefits onto some of my customers because they're just, when you tap into these, it's awesome. You tap into these and you can get some referrals, but maybe here people aren't going to refer anybody because they don't want, if something goes wrong, they don't want to be responsible for the referral, so a little less referral. The eyes are going to refer you because they're going to say, dude, look at this thing, it's beautiful, all these guys did it for me, they're amazing, they're awesome. Okay. So dominant and conscientious are very task focused, and then the influential are very people focused. It's easy to make friends with these people. It's a little tougher over here. Okay. D's are going to want the house that they're going to want to know, hey, you're telling me the system can speed up and slow down, but I just want to make sure it's going to heat my house on the coldest night and it's going to cool on the hottest day, and I'll be good with it. But it's got to be able to get the job done, right? And they might ask for you to. I've had a customer say this: can you put it in on a Saturday? You guys work Saturdays? I do, but it costs you 1.5 times the normal rate. Then most of the time they're going, oh, that's okay. We'll just. Um, Yeah, these guys are like, hey, I'm going to put two systems in here. You need one for upstairs and downstairs. Man, I don't know how that's going to look with my landscaping. Don't worry, man. We're going to make it look beautiful. It's going to look gorgeous. You're going to want to show all your friends this. It's going to be amazing. And by the way, none of your friends have two systems. They probably got some jinky zone control thing that moves air around and wastes energy. You're going to be able to show this thing off. Boom, sold the eye. Does this have a quiet side fan feature? I've heard so much. As a matter of fact, Mr. I, this thing is so quiet, you're gonna have to walk up on it to see if it's running sometimes. Oh, that sounds amazing, right? The people focused, the steady people are gonna be like, I've heard that refrigerants can be bad for the environment. Does this one have the new refrigerant in it? We had a whole bunch of problems with that around the first of the year because people, they were trying, all the manufacturers were selling out on the old stuff. And they're going, okay, as soon as we're sold out on that, we'll bring in the new stuff. And I had like a half a dozen customers waiting. I want the new refrigerant when it comes out. So disruption on around the install might worry me. An easy one on this: if you go into the house and they offer you up something right away, probably a little bit of S personality there. Conscientious, these people are going to want to know, like, hey, what's my ROI on this? You might get some ROI talk out of the D personality too. Um, a heat pump water heater, when you tell him it's going to create cool air, this guy's going to want to do something with that cool air. All right, so that's an easy one to figure out when you talk to them about it. These people over here are going to really be like, oh, I heard this makes a sound. I don't want a sound, right? This guy over here is like, I've calculated the sound levels of the decibels and I think it's going to be fine, or it won't, right? Okay. Personality identification impacts everything. So one of the things we do at my company is we do employee dynamics, and this is the personality types of all the individuals at my company. And we got some pretty good influencers here, and we've got a whole bunch of analyzers. But what we notice from this is my company doesn't have enough stabilizers. I don't have enough S's. This is why I appreciate them so much. I need one. So, or two. And we got lots of driver personality. So this is a great thing to do for everybody at your company. So everybody understands who they are and can figure out how to talk to their customers. So it's great for marketing. We do marketing that's based around, we know the majority of our customers at this company are here, and a little bit of here. I don't get a lot of D personality going because our process is a little longer, and we don't, those companies that are first to lead, speed to lead, are going to a lot of times deal with the drivers because they just want stuff done really fast. When you design things for houses and you have a 3-month backlog, you can't get things done fast. So it just kind of self outs. But so it's really important to know what your sales consultants and personality type are, or if you are a sales consultant, it helps you build the dynamic presentation of your sales presentations. if you know where you're coming from. Installer communications, like I'm way up here. I have people here to communicate with the people over here. I can communicate, I can lead these guys and I can inspire them, but I'm not good at giving the level of detail that is needed here. I understand all this stuff and I communicate it, but I do it in a way that that uh people are like, oh, that sounds too good to be true. It's not too good to be true. It's practice every day. It was a breakthrough when my wife and I did this to learn where we were aligned out. So marriage and relationships. We did this at a Christmas party at my house last year. I happened to be talking to some guys. We're out in front just hanging out. And I'm going, dude, have you ever done a disc profile? And 3 people that were standing next to me never did it. So I had them load up that same disc profile and we made a game around it. Like right then, like everybody took their profile and we're like, I bet you're like this. I bet you're like this. How is he? What do you think he is? So that was kind of cool. Okay. So if you let your customer overcome their own objections, we're going to get way further with this, right? So we need to produce the information necessary for the customer to come to their own conclusions. And that is the best way to deal with the toughest questions, because the toughest questions are going to come out during this whole communicative consultative sales process. So what is consultative selling? It's the practice of guiding customers to their own best decision. And we do that by asking lots of questions, listening to the customer's answers, not to respond, but to understand, and then guiding our customer through the process and not pushing them through the process. Like if you and your customers' personality types don't align, there's not a lot of value in saying, I would do this. Right? Some customers are going to ask you, what would you do in your home? That's it. That's a personality type indicator. Okay. So those people you can say, well, this is what I have in my home. If you don't have one in your home, you can say, well, I still have a gas furnace. They're going to go, okay, well, why are you trying to sell me one of these then? Right. So you don't want to get set up wrong for that question. So you could say, I've installed 15 of these in customers' homes this year. And I've reached out to my customers and got a few little comments about what they said, or here is some of their reviews. This is what the benefit of that is. But deep personalities aren't going to care about that. Okay. So eyes might. Okay. Practice of guiding your customer to their own best decision. Consultative selling isn't about closing deals. It's about opening conversations and hopefully closing the sale in return. So there's a lot of closers out there. There's a lot of people. I've worked for every type of company. I work for some of these big companies with the sales process where you kind of sit at the table. Back when I was doing it, it was all in a book. I still have my book up there. Back when I was doing it, it was all in a book, right? And you built your book, and it had like I go through, figure out what my customer's personality type is, and I go right to the part of the book that fed that personality type. And now we do it through a virtual process, but it's very much the same way. I ask the customer a lot of questions, determine what their personality type, and sometimes I go on Chat GPT and I said, "Hey, I got this DI personality in Oakland that is thinking about a heat pump water heater or tankless water heater. What do I need to tell them?" And it'll tell you what are the things you need to tell this guy to get that sale done. So there's a little cheat code for you. Okay. So how do people buy? People buy with emotion and then they shore up the decision with logic later. Now, some people buy with only logic, and it's gonna be a tougher sell. That's that C personality type, right? There's gonna be more logic in the initial sale. You can still get some emotion, but there's more logic in the initial sale. So, couple things: 95% of purchase decisions are driven by subconscious emotion, not rational thought. I can prove that because I can't even count on my both hands how many cars I've had. Antonio, the neuroscientist, he said those with damage to their emotional centers of the brain couldn't make even simple decisions. So take that for what it is. Logic. People make decisions emotionally and then rationalize them logically. And emotions drive behavior, but reasons govern whether we follow through. Reason governs whether we follow through. So I and D personalities will make sales very quickly. So they're gonna make it a little bit more on like the emotions for a D might be I need to get this thing back up and running because I just need to have this behind me and get on to the next thing. An I personality is like, man, I want to buy some cool stuff and get this. If I'm gonna do this, I want to do it right. And I want some really cool stuff that I can show my friends. And then later on, when I figure out how I'm paying for it, I'm just gonna justify it logically, like we do. How do people buy? Customers buy comfort, trust, and confidence, not equipment. I-type personalities sometimes don't turn off their teams before the presentation. Customers buy comfort, trust, confidence, not equipment. We got to sell the sizzle, not the steak, right? We got to sell what this is going to do for them, and not so much unless you got that one personality type, the if you're going in talking about like you got a brochure and says up to 18 seer, go, oh, this is a great 18 seer unit that's going to do all that. That is Greek and language to some people. They don't care and they don't know. Some personalities know, but you got to figure out if you're talking to the right person. Because what we don't want to do in a consultative selling process is we don't want to connect on the wrong items. We don't want to talk about things that people don't care about. So we want to get to the need. So emotion drives action. Fear of failure, desire for comfort, or pride in doing things right are all these emotions that we can tap in on. Like fear of failure. So, good one for that. You could install a new furnace here, and a lot of people are doing that. Uh, but the furnaces now are these ultra low emission models, and they're not as reliable as they used to be. So just know that if you get a furnace installed now, it's probably not going to last as long as the old furnace did. And you're going to have to install a heat pump anyway when this fails. So we could install a heat pump now and build in all the infrastructure and put in everything we need to for the heat pump now at $20-25 rather than risking this furnace only lasting 7 or 8 years and you have to put one in anyway at $20-32. What makes the most sense? Because I think that might be a failure to your budget if you put this off and it costs a lot more later, right? So that's an easy one to get by. Begin by understanding what they feel and why they reached out. So it's good to find out, Miss Jones, why are we out here today? Whatever. Okay. Logic reassures emotional brain, and the decision is safe and smart. And facts don't persuade; they reinforce confidence in what the customer already wants. Got to get the customer to want this thing. Okay. So I want to trust you. I want to understand you. This is why certain personality types, and I don't want to break people out. This is just personality types, just who we are, right? Emotional personality types want very badly to trust you. If we say something that is contradictory to something we've said before, or we backpedal on something, we're going to lose trust. And trust is what's going to build the emotional bond, make the sale. You ever go out and make a sale or try to make a sale, and when you leave there, I go, man, everything was going great. I thought I had this thing sold, and then they're like, oh, at the end, they're just like, oh, okay, nice talking to you, right? It happens because you don't know where you lost them. You said something that you didn't know you lost them. I was with a guy one day, and he was a seasoned sales guy, and I'm sitting there, and we're talking to the customer. I got the customer contract in front of him, ready to. This is back when we were signing things on paper. And the guy that was there said, well, and if you did decide to do this next year, and the guy goes, I can do this next year? Blew the sale, right? Blew the sale. Okay, anyway. So, how do people buy? Trust, empathy, confidence, respect, belonging, understanding. And then we need clarity, evidence, control, and competence. But these things are what we need to build. We need to empathize with our customer. We need to build confidence. We need to seek respect and give respect. And then we need to show social proof. Like, hey, this is what my customers are saying about these systems. Like my customers, I don't have any of, there's companies out there have 1,500 reviews and 500 of them. John fixed my air conditioner when it was hot outside, and he's great. I don't have any reviews like that. Mine are all Larry and his crew designed an amazing system for our house, and it doesn't use hundreds of dollars a month. It uses tens of dollars a month. And just like writing little books about it because we're not that type of company. So I don't have as many reviews as other companies do, but our reviews are seriously impactful. So I share those with my customers when it's like, hey, this guy lives right around the corner from you. Look at what his, right? So, okay. So here's the benefits of strategic questioning. You're going to provide more value. It lowers the barrier to being honest and candid for the customer to be honest and candid with you, and allows you to drill down to relevant insights that they might not think of on their own. So, you've gone into house, you say, hey, this system, you've been pretty comfortable in the house for the last 15 years, system's 15 years old. And they go, yeah, it's been fine. And you go, so all the rooms in the house are within 1.5 degrees on the coldest winter night? Well, no, not exactly. Well, then let's talk about that. Which rooms aren't? Draw it out, right? Helps ID and eliminate objections before closing. If we close all these objections before we get to the money is the only one we have to deal with, right? Allow you to establish yourself as a knowledgeable problem solver. It's going to give you credibility and trust. We're going to answer these tough questions on heat pumps during this process because they're going to come up, because you're going to bring them up, because we want to set expectations too. So how is your system going to make my house 1.5 degrees in each room? Nobody else is guaranteed that, because I'm going to design the system to fit your home, and it's going to be fit precisely. Like if you were going to go rent a tuxedo and you went and got measured and they ordered your tuxedo, and man, you put it on, it fits great, and you get it up to the check stand and the guy says, hey, this is great that you have this rented tuxedo, but for a 10% discount, I can give you one that's 2 sizes too big. Would you do it? Would you go and say, I wear size 12 shoes and I got a special on 11s? Would you do it? No, you would never do it. So why would we have the wrong size system in a house, right? So, okay. So here's data versus expertise. This is Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is our fictional client here. So these are some questions you can ask to get down to the brass tacks. Like, Mr. Jones, are you a person who prefers more information and data, or do you make decisions based on professional recommendations that you trust? You'll get customers to ask this. They're going to answer both ways. And we had a lady the other day. She says, no, I'm going to take your word for it. I already trust you. More information. I always do a lot of research for pulling the trigger. What might this personality trait be? Right? I know I'm going to have to give him lots of research, because what you know as a salesperson is if he goes and researches the brand you're selling on their website, what does every brand website have on it? It has a dealer finder. And he's going to go, well, maybe I'll just get one more quote, right? We don't want to drive them to that. You want to have all the information that you can send over to them. You want to have the cut sheets, the brochures, everything electronically that you can send over and potentially keep him off the competitor's website. Okay. Comfort versus savings. If you had to choose, would you rather have a lower upfront cost or a more comfortable home? If you think about that question, and we asked it, because a lot of HVAC salespeople, we go in preconceiving that our customers have a limited amount of funds that they want to spend on this thing, and we design a system built around what we would be willing to pay for it. And I can tell you, as HVAC professionals or industry professionals, we can get the stuff installed in our house a lot less expensive. We need to not wrap our head around what the customer thinks, right? We need to find out what the customer is willing to do and where their head is at. So if you had to choose, Mr. Jones, would you rather have lower upfront cost or a more comfortable home? For me, lower cost. But my wife's pushing me to do this, and she says it gets too cold. It's the opposite of my wife. Says it doesn't get cold enough in the wintertime at night. Okay, so she says it gets too cold. Okay, so now we know Mr. Jones has additional pressures or additional things he's considering above his own what he would do. Like some Mr. Joneses are going to say, no, my wife has put me on this task. I'm going to do all the data collection. I'm going to run this through the thing. I'm going to go into analysis paralysis, and then I'm going to wait a year, and I'm going to miss out on the rebates, and my wife's going to yell at me. Mr. Jones apparently has gone through that a couple times, and he's just like, my wife gets cold. I'm just going to take care of this. So technology. How important is it for you to have the latest technology in your home, Mr. Jones? I'm mostly interested in making sure it actually works and has good efficiency ratings. Great. This guy might not want a manufacturer fully communicating thermostat that's going to be hard to deal with, right? Um, he wants a unit that's going to have good efficiency ratings. So we're going to put in a system for him that's going to make sure that it works all the time. It works when it's mild outside, it works when it's cold outside, and anytime I put one of those in, it's already going to have good efficiency ratings. And I had a Mr. Jones ask me, he says, man, I got this other quote, the system you're selling, it says 17.2 SEER, and this other one these other guys are selling, and it was a two-stage versus a full modulating system. And he says this one's 17 SEER. This one's a lot less expensive. Why should I go with yours? And it was very easy to tell him because Mr. Jones, those systems have to be rated at some point in their capacity. So when you look at the brochure, it says rated capacity. That's where that 17.2 is. You see the difference in how that capacity and it goes down. Anytime it's operating at less than that capacity, it's way over 17.2 SEER. Most of the time, this is going to be way over. They just have to rate it somewhere. Yeah. Okay, great. Sold. Okay. All right. CEES, comfort, energy, environment, and sound questions. What are you looking to get out of your new system? This is a good one because I don't know, I just want it to heat and cool and be just as good as the old one. I just need a new system. Really, this is a good one. So we're not looking for an additional energy savings. Your every room is within 1.5 degrees. Your air quality is okay. It's not too noisy. All those things. A really important one, especially when we're sizing and determining how much energy these are going to use. Like Mr. Jones, I just wanted to ask you, how do you use your existing system? How do you use your thermostat? I used to ask, how do you run your furnace? But everybody tries to be, clever and go with my thermostat. So how do you use your thermostat? Do you program your thermostat and keep it at a specific temperature? Or are you the type that likes to turn it off at night and warm the house up in the morning and just kind of wear a long sleeve shirt all day? I want to know that because I'm going to have a different conversation with that customer than I am with the guy who leaves it on all the time. And the guy that leaves it on all the time, I'm going to have a much greater percentage of chance of lowering his cost. But I don't want the guy that runs it for an hour and takes the chill off and wears a long sleeve shirt thinking this is going to reduce his cost because he's going to be calling you when his bills go up. Okay. Mr. Jones, do you and your wife ever sacrifice comfort? I know you told me she's cold all the time, but do you guys ever sacrifice comfort to save energy cost? Great question to get in there and get on it. Yeah, no, the reason we don't run it is because we just don't like the pollution. Get that one a lot too. Okay. Mr. Jones, do you live in a really quiet lifestyle? It looks like your house is pretty quiet. This is really important. Like then that gives me caveat to take care of these other problems, right? How important is reducing your home's carbon footprint to you? It's a great one without saying, hey, are you like an eco guy or whatever? But how important in this decision is reducing your house carbon footprint? What you get here is some of these guys are going to say, that's not my biggest need. I just know we need a new system. This is the newer stuff we're putting in, and I want something that's going to be more efficient. Okay, great. I don't need to talk about environmental stuff with this guy, right? So if taking care of these is important to you, there might be a slight increase in cost. Are you okay with that? Ask permission to charge more. Like my daughter's room up in the front up there in the summertime, it gets blazing hot in there. Really? That must be bad. Does she go into another room in the summertime? Well, it's not that bad, but she always complains. Man, that sounds really bad. How important is that for us to take care of that as part of the process of this installation? Well, I think I probably should take care of that. If there was an additional cost involved in taking care of that over and above the cost of the basic system, would you be okay with that? Another way to ask it, right? Ask permission to charge more. Understand their journey. How long have you been thinking about this project, Mr. Jones? I just thought about it last week when I heard some people talking about it, or, I've been thinking about it for a couple of years. What's held you back so far? Well, I was waiting till the time was right. What about this time makes it right for you? Well, I've heard that there's some good incentives. What incentives have you heard about? Follow up those questions so you can get those nuggets for later on. We're going to use them when we close the sale, right? These are important, tough questions that we're going to answer as we go. So, how long have you been thinking about this project? Well, my wife's been telling me I need to take care of this for a while. It got hot last summer. I was looking at just adding an air conditioner, but the guy came out and told me my furnace is really old and I had to replace that too. And I've just been hearing this thing about people getting heat pumps, and I looked into it a little bit and they're more efficient. So I'm just kind of interested in seeing what they cost. Right? Great answer. Now we know exactly how to deal with the customer. Okay. Have you done research on heat pumps already, Mr. Jones? Yeah, I've been doing quite a bit of research. I'm a research guy. And I would say, have there been any systems that you like or dislike more, or anything that you want to know more information about? And this is why it's important for you all, when you're going out and doing these sales, to know about how all these systems operate so you can speak intelligently to it. So, yeah, I was looking on one of those sites and they said it kind of runs for a long time, but it kind of keeps the house real comfortable and uses less energy. And it says, yes, sir, there are systems that do that, but those are not the least expensive systems out there. So do you want me to show you systems that operate like that, even though they might be a little bit more expensive than a basic system that might not do that? Have you talked to other professionals about this project? Am I the first guy you've talked to about a heat pump? Because I can go into a lot. I can give you all the groundwork information you need to see if the next guys that come out are going to know what they're talking about. Right? That's a good one that we use a lot. Like, you haven't talked to anybody else? Let me give you everything you need to know to find out if the other guy knows what he's talking about. Okay. If you did, what did they say? What did they recommend? Maybe one of them recommended this. They're vastly different. One of them recommended this thing, and another guy recommended this thing. Kind of runs all the time, or it's got variable speed, and this guy says I shouldn't get a heat pump at all because my house is too big and I got single pane windows. And I say, how would you feel if a system was designed to fit your house perfectly and you had a couple of choices on which one you could use? Would that help with that? What did they say? Which one did you like better? Ask these questions. Do you and your partner have reservations about a heat pump? Like, is there anything you've heard about them that would make you want to steer away from a heat pump, or have you only heard good things? Because if you've only heard good things, you've only talked to half the customer. Is there any reservations? Yeah, yeah. One of my reservations is it's going to use a lot more energy because we use gas now, and gas is kind of cheap. And I says, well, if you haven't been keeping up on your gas bill, gas has gone up a lot in the last number of years, and it's projected to go even higher as fewer and fewer people are buying therms of gas. The delivery cost on the gas is going to end up going up because there's less people paying into that. So in the future, gas is going to be more expensive, but so will electricity. So we need to put in a really good, efficient system so that has as low impact as possible. Are you okay if we design a really expensive system or a really efficient system and it's a bit more expensive? Okay. So the importance of using the right language. Now we talk a little bit about this so far, right? There's some new concepts. Being over technical on or complex will be counterproductive, but showing that you have advanced knowledge around this, since it's so new, is going to build confidence, right? Because I've had customers tell me, like, that guy, I knew he didn't know what he was talking about. This guy seemed a little bit more intelligent and he could talk about a few things. That was the guy that was recommending a 5-zone system for the dude's house that was, twice as big as it needed to be. But here's some tips. Use some analogies. I gotta tell you, you know what? It works like your refrigerator does. Just like when you put yesterday's minestrone soup in the refrigerator, you come back the next day, it's cold. That compressor extracted the heat out of that and they put it on the kitchen floor. Heat pump works the same way, except a heat pump can switch over and give you cooling and heating. Boom. That's an easy way to explain it. Benefits oriented language, how it's going to help them. you know, this system, because it has longer cycles, doesn't heat with as warm of air. So the heat, so it's not going to get warm and cool like you said that your system does now, which means it's going to run longer so it can mix the air better. So the top corner of the room should be the same temperature as the bottom corner of the room. And I bet it's not that way now with your furnace. Wouldn't be with another furnace either. So that's one of the way heat pumps is going to really help you be more comfortable in your home. And did I mention it's super quiet doing that? Visual aid, show a bunch of pictures. Take a bunch of pictures of all the jobs you've done and show them. Show the customers what the line caps are going to look like. Don't sell a 5-zone wall mounted system and have the customer come home after work and you got line cap running all over their house and they didn't know it, right? Used to do the same thing with 90% furnaces. You take out the old flue and you put in 90% furnace in a garage. You put this big ugly 4-inch flue pipe or 3.5 or whatever the heck it was, flue pipe across their garage with nice white pipe that's been banging around in your truck for a long time. And it's got blue glue on all the joints. That's not pretty. We got to explain to our customers that that's going to be there. Like, I'm going to be taking this flue pipe out the side of your house here. Are you cool with that? Because they come home and see that they're going to, I was not expecting this. So make sure you give them all the information they need. So you set expectations for what they're going to see as well as what they're going to feel. Safety and health. If this is an electric system, there's no flames. I'm going to be pulling these flames out of your house. I'm going to be pulling the opportunity for your function of your furnace to malfunction and potentially cause a health hazard to your family. I'm pulling that out, right? Okay. Where are we on time, Alex? We are, man, so close. Okay, next week we're going to be doing presentation and responding to final objections. We're going to help you make your presentation out, right? So we'll show you how we respond to the objections that might have slipped through. It'll cost too much. Electricity is more expensive than gas. What if power goes out? The grid can't handle it. Heat pumps don't work. We're going to go over a whole bunch of these next week. And what you can do, put any objections you feel like you want to talk about next week in the chat right now, and then we'll bring those to the table next week. And Alex, do we have any questions?
No questions listed, but we'll open it up. If anyone has questions, feel free to put them in the chat room or the Q&A box.
Was there any comments? Was this valuable in this presentation? Did anybody here learn anything? You can just put a thumbs up. All right. Yeah. Okay, so bam. All right. So without further ado, it looks like we have Go Zero round. For the Go Zero program, there was a question came in there about the incentive.
Yeah, there's a question about the Go Zero incentive. Mayabel, is that something you have an answer to?
Yes, the rebate is provided after the installation. If I know there's some questions in terms of like how can an installer or a customer know if the system they're installing will be approved for the rebate, you can always get in touch with our application assistance team and they'll help you kind of work through that, figure that out. You will have to provide product descriptions to ensure that talking about. Okay, so you're talking about the incentive? Do we prep the client for the amount they will receive? Yeah. I would recommend getting in touch with the application assistance team. You do have to make sure that the system that's being installed is an Energy Star certified system as a whole. So that is one of the, I guess, biggest disclaimers that that's come up. But yeah, the way to get the rebate is after installation. But if you do want to make sure that the system that you're installing is approved for the rebate, and if the customer is in a overburdened and non-overburdened area, you want to clarify how much they'll be approved, I'd recommend getting in touch with our application assistance team and they'll be able to guide you with that. And I'll drop their email
Fantastic.
information in the chat as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank everybody for joining in. Hope we're going to join next week for the kind of conclusion of that. And then we're going to get into, in the future webinars, we're going to get into talking a little bit more about technical stuff. Okay. So
Let's get the next two slides up so folks can go ahead and scan the codes and register. So this is kind of the part 2 to the conversation today, overcoming heat pump hesitation, where we'll actually work through all of those objections. So go ahead and scan that code. And then Larry, you can talk about the boot camp.
yeah, so the 2-day boot camp it gets into a lot, right? So this was an hour and a half here. We kind of brushed on a little bit of sales. We go deeper into sales and personalities, but we go a lot into equipment, the things you need to talk to your customer about, when they say, why the heck would I want to do that? We go over a lot of that, the policy, products, comparing the different heat pump types and how to install them, the things that you must do to get good performance out of the heat pump systems, system checking, building envelope, and a little building science that kind of relates around everything, how to lay it out so it works well, how to communicate the sizing thing, how to calculate the sizing change, with like, how can I size this system properly? What can I conserve? There, it's just, there's an amazing amount of content, and it's really fun class, and you will go out of there like everybody else does, going, I never knew half of this, right? Or more than that on most of it. So going to be in Diamond Bar on December 4th and 5th, and scan this right here to get registered, and we'll have a nice catered lunch for you. It'll be pretty awesome, and you're going to learn a lot. Okay, so thank you. Here's the Go Zero training directory. Thank you guys so much for participating today. We're a couple minutes over, and we'll talk to you soon. See you next time. Have a great day.